Thanks for being here. Thanks for joining me in this first webinar of our AI Learning Week. AI Strategy for Leaders, Ethics, Governance, and Business Success. A whole lot of topics for just 1 hour, but I'll give you the main gist of it. So, yeah, like I said, 1 hour. So that's how long you'll be stuck with me, unless you decide to leave early, but that will be, well, really direct feedback. I will open the chat window in the meantime. So if you have any questions, I will try to have a look at the chat window once in a while to see if there are questions that I can address in the meantime. Please know that since this is a webinar format, it's a bit less interactive that you might be used to if you ever did a training with me previously. If you never did a training with me, well, then please know that normally my trainings are a bit more interactive, especially the in-person ones. But a webinar format does not really allow for successful interactivity from my point of view. You can discuss about it. That's something off topic, so I'm not going to dive more into there. Just know that, yeah, it will be a bit more me sending information, but I have a few questions in between for you to also actually do some thinking and get that gray mass to work. So let's dive right in. So again, welcome, third time. Well, 3 times a charm, I guess, is English saying. I'm not sure, it's a bit rusty there. But anyway, I'm Steven. I'm a data and AI strategist, analytics translator, and a trainer. It's a whole mouthful, and also my weeks are pretty full with all those different roles. But at Xebia, or Xebia Data, the data part of our company, I do, I would say, almost anything that doesn't involve coding. So I know about AI, I know what it can do, I know what it often can't do. I know about data governance, about data modeling. More and more ethics is becoming important, especially in Europe and especially in the Netherlands. And what I like most is, well, sharing and telling others about what it is that we encounter in practice and how it can help you. So all our trainings are, well, we try to design the trainings in such a way that we learn today, apply tomorrow, or in that case, you learn today and apply tomorrow. So I might be referring to some frameworks in this webinar as well. Please just check them out on our website. You can just find them there. There are blog posts about them, such as the value chain of data science. It will pop up at some point. You can find a blog post about it. You can also look for other webinars about specifically that topic and, well, download the framework and get going. So we really try to make it hands-on, not the theoretical exercise. You have universities for that. So that's me. I live in Nune, next to Eindhoven in the Netherlands, with our almost 9-month-old son. So yeah, the nights are still a bit sleep deprived, but enjoying a lot. So, but let me get back to the topic. So what did I prepare for you today? So to be fair with you, I took bits and pieces from different trainings and I paid a bit of attention to the outlining because this topic is, well, a bit scattered around, or it appears in many of our different trainings, and I try to get the best in this one and retain it in 1 hour. I mean, we can spend days discussing building AI solutions or implementing AI solutions that you buy off the shelf. Fair enough, still works. And what considerations you all have to I'll take a look at. And again, I try to make it really hands-on and applicable. So I'm actually going to give you a bunch of checklists regarding trustworthy AI that, well, if you can check them all, I would say you're doing a good job. If you can check none of them, well, you might want to have a discussion with your teams who are either building or buying the solutions that you are considering. So I first want to discuss the AI solution framework, which is one of our cornerstone frameworks in building AI solutions, but can as well be applied to like buying AI solutions. You always have that buy build discussion or choice. So it can be applied to both. In which, like I said, I mostly pay attention to trust, ethics, responsibility, fairness, those type of topics, and how they fit in that solution framework. And then secondly, I'd like to take a bit of a step back and think about, discuss with you, or well, present to you. What does it mean to be successful? What do I need to consider as a leader to be successful with AI solutions, or I would almost say data in general? So that's what I have in store for today, and that's what we're going to spend the next 55 minutes on. So, and like I said, also like to have your gray mass at work a bit. So I'm just going to have a very first question on the screen, just for 30 seconds, for you to think about, okay, webinar about AI Learning Week. Okay, cool, but yeah, I mean, when is data or AI applicable for
No,
businesses
siempre
anyway?
aprendiendo, siempre
So,
aprendiendo.
well, I'm going to find the mute button on Zoom to
¿Qué
mute you
más?
all. I invite you to type a few of your thoughts in the chat when data and or AI is applicable for your business.
Hola, Matica.
So don't be hesitant to drop your thoughts in the chat. When is data and AI applicable for businesses? When time consuming tasks are impacting productivity, financial growth. Yeah, okay. So I would say manual labor that impacts your productivity and or growth. Always, well, Mark, I would say often, but always, let's agree to disagree there. I mean, I'm really glad my baker focuses on breaking bread and not using AI applications to tune his oven or so. When you can use it, it's ethical. Yeah, well, definitely, Hank. So when it's ethical, forecasting, yeah, forecasting is a big thing. I mean, thanks, Abdul. It's indeed, I'm going to call you Abdul just for my pronunciation skills. Forecasting indeed, actually, well, you think of AI or predictive machines, it's all about forecasting and making those forecasts applicable. Can help better decisions when data analyzed correctly. Yeah, well, thanks indeed, Jody. Correctly analyzing data, that's kind of a thing, isn't it? Things can be digitalized. Yeah, definitely, Jeremy. So it's hard to use AI on a shovel. Learning from digital breadcrumbs of your own operations and markets around you. Well, yeah. So maybe to be inspired about tasks, activities, to make the task more easy. Yeah, again, easing stuff. Reach out your business goals faster by using AI. Well, hopefully. Recommendation engines. Yeah, well, especially in online marketing domain or so. Or Amazon recommenders, that type of stuff. Netflix recommenders for content, you name it. To be profitable, hopefully, yeah. Just know that a lot of AI also costs a lot of money. So, but a business case is definitely something to ask for as a leader. Not explicitly in this training though, because I focus on the ethics part. But this task automated. Thanks. Fraud detection, definitely. Create efficiency. Well, a lot of great ideas. So I would say keep them coming. And I will try in the meantime to summarize them on the fly. Just kidding, I prepared this, of course. So I would say when there's business value potential, unless maybe you are a government agency or whatsoever who doesn't need to make a living or profit. But in general, there needs to be some value potential in there, as also mentioned, for example, by NGOPAL, to be profitable. And when I zoom out, I think, okay, so you have repetitive tasks that maybe can be automated. So think of a finance team that does invoice processing. Well, that's stuff that can be automated with computer vision and then some NLP on top or so to actually read that invoice and process it automatically. I had to do that as a treasurer myself in the past. It's tedious work. Maybe that's why it's on the slide. Cognitive insights. So the breadcrumbs of data of your company, your market operations. So maybe identify new insights based on those breadcrumbs that were mentioned earlier in the chat. Fraud detection was mentioned in the chat as well. Next best action or recommenders. And third one, which actually I would say came about in the last couple of years, which is cognitive engagement. So think of, I hope we all know about ChatGPT, but with the well, let's say continuous development efforts in large language models, in generative AI, we can actually now at this point create decent support agents using AI, where in the past, the rule-based ones might not always have been so customer friendly, let's put it that way. The query was, give me the number of the sales rep or the customer support agent. Yeah, well, nowadays, actually, some generative applications can handle a lot of that engagement as well. So, but when it's applicable, something that I didn't see too much, a few people said, well, we need data, obviously you need data. So you need sufficient data to base any insights or predictions on, obviously. Breadcrumbs maybe, but maybe some loaves of bread. And you want to use data that lies within the ethical regulatory guidelines. And to be completely honest with you, this is just 3 slides that I copy-pasted from another training that I facilitate for a group of young consultants at a Big Four company. And they come up with that first part. They come up with the potential use cases, just like you did. But I'm really glad that, I think it was Henk in the chat who said, it needs to be, when you can use it ethically. Hank said so. So yes, a lot of possibilities, but also think about, okay, when, how, where, and does it make sense? Or don't we cross the creepy line, for example? Do we want to build a CV selector using AI? Well, maybe, maybe not. I mean, it's repetitive work looking through all those CVs. But if you want to admit or reject a person based on an AI application scanning CVs, you might want to consider doing that twice and at least pay a lot of attention to your model and how it evaluates the CVs. What are the features that are put in there to assess whether someone should be proceeded to the next round or not? For example, gender should not be part of the feature set, unless maybe in some really rare job applications. But just giving data to an AI model, random forest or so, it doesn't differentiate. It doesn't, think about stuff like that itself. So that's where human people come into play, especially leaders should, I think, drive that process. Because a data scientist aims to build the best model ever. Leader, I would say, has a responsibility to also ensure that it lies within the ethical boundaries of the organization. And of course, the regulatory guidelines, that's why you have a privacy officer, for example, and a risk officer and those type of people. But then how? And that's where the first thing comes into play. Well, the first topic I like to discuss, AI solution framework. How can you actually ensure building trustworthy ethical AI solutions? Or what are some key questions that you can ask? Actually, the questions is what I'm going to give you today at different stages of the model. So, what's your process to develop AI solutions? How do you do that, or don't you do that at all, maybe? Again, feel free to use the chat. I'll give you another, say, 30 seconds or so. So, yep, it's quick typing, but we only have an hour. So I'll see them coming in. And if you don't have a process to develop AI solutions, or you don't develop at all, also fine to drop it in the chat, because it also gives me a bit of a feel for how new or not new this is going to be. Thanks for the awesome drawing on my slides. I'm really amazed by the capabilities of Zoom. I never use Zoom, but I see Navneet is really making a piece of art. Appreciate it. A bit like my training analytics translation. Yeah, Willem, but it's appended. So, but I'm glad that you recognize this. Data collection, preparation, model development, evaluate, repeat. Thanks, Ngopal. I really don't know how to pronounce your name, but well, Ngopal. Jeremy, set a goal, data preparation, data modeling, prediction, inference, evaluation of the model. Cool. I like to start a bit earlier though, Jen. So people. So those steps are definitely going to be part of this framework, but let me briefly explain the framework to you. And now I have a lot of drawing in my screen, so I'm going to erase that. Like I said, I never use Zoom, so maybe you don't see it at all, I don't know. Anyway, AI solution framework, and indeed the people who did the analytics translation training with us before might recognize this framework, or I hope they do, because it's part of the training as well. So for them, it's a quick recap. For the others, it's a brief, really brief run through. So when developing AI solutions, we consider three different phases: the ideate, experiment, industrialize phase. So I read set a goal, part of the ideation phase. Data pre-processing, modeling, predictions, inference, part of experimentation phase. Evaluation of the model, also in there. Understand the problem, yeah, definitely part of the ideation phase. Get, explore data, clean data, choose the right model, part of experimentation phase. So a lot of the input that you provided in the chat is part of this framework here. We're in the ideation phase. We like to first, before actually building or exploring the data or building an AI solution, we want to think about, okay, what's the problem we're going to solve? So from an initial idea, which could be, for example, a super deep learning model, we want to, from that idea, first detail out, okay, who are going to build it for? What is the potential value inherent in there? How are we going to measure in practice what we're going to deliver? What should the end state solution do for the end users to be successful? Who is the end user anywhere? Anyhow, is it a human in the loop solution? Is it a fully automated product? What does the thing look like? So we're going to collect a whole bunch of ideas. Sorry for that. We're going to select the most promising ones, or at least the ones that we believe are most promising. And then we're going to further refine, so further detail that promising idea and really understand those questions that I just mentioned. And I would say as a leader or a senior manager, you might chip in the idea collection. Typically, the refinement will be done by a project manager, analytics translator, together with the data science team, with business stakeholders, so people from your team. And then I would say in the validated use cases where you decide to proceed with the solution or not. So as a leader, you take the go, no go decisions within this framework. So where are you going to focus? Does that detailed solution, that refined solution, do you think it's promising enough to invest your money, invest your people in there? Then in the experimentation phase, that's where the data modeling is going to happen. Data exploration, cleaning, creating those first AI solutions. That's all part of the explore and proof of concept step, where we're actually going to technically prove whether the solution works or not. After which we typically have an intermediate results workshop where we're going to show to stakeholders. So the team is going to show to you as a leader, do we have sufficient trust in the data and the AI capabilities to actually predict or build something useful given the problem at hand? If yes, we're going to transform that proof of concept into an MVP, so something end users can interact with. And we're going to actually test the other hypothesis that we have, namely, does it work in practice? And does it add value? So in the experimentation phase, I would say we validate the three critical hypotheses that we have, which are, does it work technically? The proof of concept. Does it work in practice? The MVP, so can end users interact with it and get the insights that they need? And does it add value, so proof of value, or the pilot phase, you could say. If all is yes, we have a valuable MVP, again, as a leader, you decide to proceed or not. Are the results good enough to further invest and industrialize this beauty? Where we're going to develop and deploy, so it is a really technical step towards go live, so get the MVP to a production state solution, and then we integrate and scale it. So integrate it in the way of working, update working instructions, those type of activities, to eventually have an adopted solution that end users can actually use and interact with. So that's the solution framework in a nutshell. And I'm going to proceed with the key questions to ask from an ethics point of view, and also where, again, this webinar is a complement to the analytics translation training, for example, or complementary to. So first, the ideation phase, when the validated use case. So really text heavy slide. Yes, I could have used animations or stuff, but I think it's good to see the entire spectrum at once. So what we see here on top is what we call the value chain of data science. So any AI solution will contain these elements, namely data being used in a predictive model, so forecasting was mentioned. To get insights, those insights are actually being used by someone in line with business objectives, what we call the optimization step. So turning those insights into something actionable, so someone or a system taking an action. We want to measure everything that is done, whether the system is being used, uptime, response time, but also business metrics, usage metrics, model metrics, to ultimately unlock value all the way at the right side. So this is our framework to turn data into value with all the intermediate steps. And the key questions to answer, or the team should have answered for you as a leader to take a decision, what we learned from practice so far, and maybe or probably the list is not extensive at all, but well, first of all, does it solve a problem in line with your business objectives? So also when you think of ethical solutions, well, you could wonder whether it's ethical to do something totally different to your core business. So as a hospital suddenly gonna predict propensity to buy model for some minor surgeries, not sure if that's really in line with your objective, namely making as many people healthy as possible. At least in the Netherlands, maybe it's different in different parts of the world, of course. So that's the overall scope question. Are we actually solving a problem for someone? And unfortunately, often the answer is no. So no, it's not always AI that's applicable. And is it in line with our business objectives? Well, if yes, then we can consider the other questions. And at this stage, I would like to move from value to measure, or value to data. So do we actually create measurable value for stakeholders and users? Can be different groups. Stakeholders can be shareholders, for example, business case. Users can be end users. So what do we provide those people? What are the success metrics? And you can think of model, usage, and business metrics. And actually, how will we validate those metrics before we are going to move forward? So already think about your pilots before you're actually going to explore the data, because if you agree or you conclude that you're not going to be able to test it, you might not want to proceed at all. Then in the actions, how will we address potential risks that could arise from those actions? So of course, we want to understand what actions are going to be taken by whom, but you also want to think about, okay, and what are potential risks or adverse events resulting from those? Then for the optimization step, how will the AI solution be implemented? So is it a human in the loop versus fully automated system? Well, in the latter case, we maybe want to have more guardrails in place compared to a human in the loop kind of application. So right now I'm building a generative AI solution with the team for a large international client. And it's a really clear human in the loop solution where key is to ground all our insights. So actually we ground our Gen AI models or LLMs. So they always provide the source information to the end user so they themselves can decide whether it's a valuable insight, whether they trust it, or whether it's a hallucination, which is unfortunately what still happens. So how will it be implemented? How do we control it, or who is in control? Or how do we ensure someone is in control? So, of course, for insights, making sure that only the right people have access to the insights. So the multinational or the international client I just mentioned, only certain people based on the RBAC, so the role-based access control, have access to the model insights, and only a specific group of users can send prompts to that application. Predict, is the proposed solution technically feasible with our resources and expertise? Maybe something to consider upfront. If you still need to build an entire capability, maybe you want to onboard an external consultant who has done it before. And also with Gen AI, that's already possible these days. There are consultants who have built Gen AI applications that actually run in production, us being one of them. And data, well, obvious one, but do we have access to the necessary data? But it's also of high quality. High quality, think of unbiased data. Or if there is bias in the data, do we already have some ideas in mind how to counter that or how to account for it? Do we have certain groups in the data that are under or oversampled? Oh, this is unfortunate. Free meeting will end in 10 minutes. Well, let's see what's going to happen. If that's, well, I have a paid account, so I'm really curious what's going to happen with the Zoom meeting, but we'll see. So do we have extra data? Do we have high quality data? Unbiased? Is there under or oversampling? Can we resample the undersampled groups, for example? Do we have a feel for the data collection process? So do we know how the data is stored? Is it a manual data, manually typed by people? Is it auto-generated by sensors? Well, get a feel for that type of collection process to also get a better feel for how good representation is the data of reality. And well, overarching responsible AI, does the design meet regulatory requirements and adhere to your responsible AI principles? A bit more on those principles later, hopefully in this meeting, else I'm gonna restart the meeting and let's hope that then works. I need 2 times 30 minutes, so I'm not sure what's gonna happen there. Okay, in the experimentation phase, so if we answered all those questions and the whole bunch of other questions that that you will find in our blog posts or in other trainings, we go to the experimentation phase, and also in the experimentation phase, there are some key considerations for you as a leader to consider. So again, I took the same list just for reference, so easy to refer. Scope, to what extent did we solve a business problem? So we now built an MVP, we tested the MVP. To what extent do we actually solve a real problem with our MVP? We should be able to actually answer that question right now. So did we prove any value in the pilot? So like I said, the experimentation phase is about validating 3 critical hypotheses. Does it work in practice? So technical hypothesis, does it work on historical data? Does it work in practice? MVP in pilot, and does it add any value from the pilot? So what did the success metrics tell us about the value, usage, and model performance? What was feedback from users on the usability, but also on their feel about the quality of the insights? Well, were all target audiences treated the same way? So did we indeed, if we look at our data set, if we look at the different target audiences, did all of them get not necessarily the same predictions? That would be awkward, because then why would we have target audiences? But at least get predictions that are reasonably explainable, that are tailored to their situation, and then not someone is over or under. Yeah, thanks, Navdeed. Well, I can see your drawings. I'm not sure about the rest. Anyway, under or overrepresented or penalized for whatever reason. So I always had to think of this. I think it was a tech firm launching a credit card where 2 people, male, female, they shared income, shared assets. They both requested a credit card, and the male requester got a 10 times higher limit than the female requester. Well, that's something that, first of all, you want to account for while developing your solution. That should not happen. But secondly, if that happens in the pilot, it should show up. And then this is a clear indication that not all target audiences were treated the same by the solution. So insights. Well, there's always uncertainty with our model. How is it presented to the users? How is it explained to the users that we have model uncertainty? How did the feature set ensure fair estimators? So what was used as predictors? Does it make sense to use those predictors? And what was the quality report of the data? So we now really dove into the data. We really looked at all the nitty-gritty details. Is the data fair? Is the data biased? How did we account for under or oversampling? What are the different samples for the different user groups within the data? So the data gathering process, we took a close look at that. How responsible do we believe it is for the real life application, real life situation? And then again, same questions earlier. Does the MVP now meet the regulatory requirements? and adhere to our responsible principles. And I'm going to pay a bit more attention to those right now. So, what responsible AI principles could you consider before taking MVP to production? And for sake of time, I'm just going to give them to you. And well, there are different lists, there are different overviews you can consider. I tried to, I would say, give you the main gist out of a whole bunch that we came across. And when I think of responsible AI, I think of fairness, transparency, privacy, maybe also security in there, accountability, reliability, inclusiveness, ethical use, and societal impact. And you could even say environmental impact should be in there. Fair enough. I mean, this is also, like I said, a consolidation of different perspectives. But I'm going to give you a few considerations as a leader to consider before you take any solution to production, whether you developed it yourself, whether you bought it off the shelf. No pun intended with the rhyme there. Fairness. So, have you identified potential bias in your training data? Have you identified potential bias in your algorithms, in your feature set? So, maybe even team processes like the data gathering process that I mentioned earlier. So, second one, does your AI provide equitable results for all users? So, irrespective of race, gender, age, whatever you can think about, that probably should not be a predictor anyway. Maybe age for, I don't know, predicting whether someone is going to go to a retirement home anytime soon. Age might be a predictor there. And that's fair, that's fine then, right, to include it. But at least think about it. And, well, have any fairness metrics be incorporated in the AI system evaluation process? So, for example, like I said, bias in your data or bias in your predictors, well, there's mathematical ways to account for bias or test for bias. Bias in your data, you can think of over-undersampling, and did we maybe evaluate the predictors on those different samples to see whether, well, for both it makes sense what the predictions say. Transparency. Are the system's objectives, capabilities, limitations clearly communicated to stakeholders and end users? So any AI system will have flaws, will have limitations, just like the Zoom meeting might have in 2.5 minutes, its limitation. I'm really, well, let's see. So are those clearly communicated? Do people understand them? Can people actually say stakeholders, can they tell you about the limitations? So it's one thing to tell someone about it, but it's a different thing if they can actually present back to you what the limitations are and explain those to you or to the team. Can you explain the key decisions and output? Obviously, closely links to that fairness principle we just discussed. And is a clear documentation. So if someone, say you would have an audit, and you have an audit on your AI system, well, is it clearly documented how you took certain decisions, why you took the feature set, what the rationale is behind the system that you built. So also make sure that the process is documented, key decisions are documented. Privacy. So are you in line with privacy regulations? For example, the California one, CCPA, the Virginia one, VCDPA, or if you have Europe exposure, GDPR, if you have China exposure, PIPL. So there are, well, more and more data regulations and privacy regulations popping up. So make sure that you, well, adhere to those and also make your privacy officer a really clear and important stakeholder. Did you anonymize and or encrypt sensitive data? So if there is a risk of data leakage or whatever, or any misuse in general, how did you account to minimize that risk? You wouldn't be the first company where anyone can look at all the data. And do you have robust security measures in place? So to make sure that someone doesn't get unauthorized access, no one can manipulate the data, or in case of a data breach that you minimize the exposure and also potential fine. Accountability. You have a clear governance structure, clear roles, responsibilities, and clear monitoring, auditing of the AI systems. So we just discussed the first 4 principles that I distilled from a whole bunch: fairness, transparency, privacy, bit of security, accountability. The remaining ones: reliability, inclusiveness, ethical use, societal impact on the right here. I'm going to briefly address right now. So reliability. So we had fairness about the predictions. Reliability, we want to make sure that the system has been really thoroughly tested. So has it been tested for edge cases? Has it been tested for just the regular flow, for the majority, the big samples of subsamples in our data? What's the accuracy around different subsets? Just some really basic stuff also, like a k-fold validation for your hyperparameter tuning, or maybe even a tuning set. So how reliable is it, or what is the chance that we are overfitting, I would say, on a specific subsample of our data? So again, edge cases, have we considered those? So are we consistent across different environments or different subsamples of our data? And if we encounter problems, if something unexpected occurs, do we have a fallback? So think of a recommender model. Do we maybe have a standard set of often bought products that we can recommend if we can't predict, or if the prediction is out of bounds for whatever reason? Not to suddenly, I don't know, recommend guns to minors or so. Just thinking of some weird stuff here. Then inclusiveness. So inclusiveness is, of course, the inclusiveness of your different subsamples in your data. But to be fair, fairness also covered that already. But you can also think of inclusiveness of including different stakeholders in the development process. So if you create a CV selector, just coming with an example again, of course we included HR with the HR manager. But did we also include some recruiters? Did we maybe include some people who just got hired, maybe even some people who didn't get hired? So did we include, I don't know, salesperson of LinkedIn as a stakeholder? So are these different perspectives, so different people can, well, that they bring to the table, are those different perspectives considered in your model development process? And again, I would say log whoever you include and their contributions and what you did with those. Ethical use. So how do we make sure that the system does not do any harm or does not discriminate? So a good friend of mine, she works at the Dutch police, and we always have this discussion of discrimination because certain ethnical groups in the Netherlands are overrepresented in the criminal records. And she says, well, so we should do more profiling on those people. And I tell them, no, that's because of your data collection process, because you have over years and years, over decades of time when you collected the data, primarily focused on that group. And if you really start looking, you always find something. And probably the truth might be somewhere in the middle. I don't know. I don't want to have any political statements here. I just want to give it as an example that there could be some aspects in your data collection that might be flawed because people are flawed, or they might be flawed because of some certain reasoning that maybe at some point made sense, but maybe not anymore, or maybe not at scale. So that's one. Discriminate profiling. Systems shouldn't do any harm. For state aid applications, no AI is being used, so to the extent that I know, and the participants that I had in my trainings earlier, because they can't explain what's happening and they are afraid of discriminating without their knowledge. I'm not going to say never discriminated. And also, are there any policies in place to ensure that, well, bad actors can't do anything malicious with our systems? So there's this current state. Is it fair? Is it ethical? Does it discriminate? But also, what if someone wants to do harm? Can we ensure that that's not going to happen? And then societal impact. So does the system have a positive impact to society, and might not be necessarily applicable, right? But you can also turn it around and you can say, well, doesn't the system do any harm? So have we looked at minimizing potential loss or potential harm from societal perspective, economical perspective, environmental maybe even? So a bit bigger scope than just your company. I know you're responsible for your company, your bottom line, but you are in an ecosystem. And at least in Europe, it's more and more important that you also take care of the ecosystem a bit. But again, might be different in different parts of the world. So, I'm not saying you should copy paste this one-on-one, all these aspects, but it could be guidelines that could actually help you today or tomorrow onwards to at least broaden your perspective of the considerations that you take when developing or implementing AI solutions. In the meantime, I saw another question in the chat, how to get the recorded sessions. Well, my marketing colleagues will take care of that. So everyone who subscribed to the webinar will also get access to the recordings. So those will be shared at the moment. Last phase, go to production scale up. Well, there's a lot of work to be done to take your MVP to a production state solution. So MVP, you could say it works on the laptop of data scientists on Mondays and Tuesdays, where a production state solution is something that always works, or at least almost always, and it also generates value. So instead of learning, which is the focus of the experiment phase, we now want to focus on creating safe, trustworthy, and maintainable solutions. So no data dumps, but real-time data ingestion and preparation. No laptop runs, but scaling or running at scale on the cloud with all the security in place. From experimental code to code that actually complies with standard and has all the tests, unit tests, functional tests, you name it, in there to ensure that the code actually behaves as it should do, or how we wanted to program it. There might be difference there. From one person who knows how to run it to a really well-documented, maintained pipeline. Output on laptop screen embedded in the end user systems. And like I said, from knowledge development to business value realization in the industrialization phase. So all this is needed to take your MVP to a production grade solution. This is just a lot of this is really tech heavy work, engineering work. And then, then we're almost done, right? I mean, how much work is there still to be done after go live? Well, I would say we're only halfway, probably. And I can also back this by more and more articles that are being released about adopting AI. Think of some Harvard Business Review articles about organizations that are really successfully embedding AI in their organizations. Well, they spend at least as much budget on the adoption part as on the development part. And also when I look at our projects, if we forget or don't pay attention to adoption, you have an awesome Ferrari in the garage and no one knows how to drive. So what does it mean to adopt responsibly then? Because there's a lot to be said about adoption. I mean, there are the entire change management frameworks and methodologies, and I'm not going to address all in the next 11 minutes. But from a responsibly perspective, well, what does it mean? Well, you have to think of awareness education. So trainings, and not only on how to use the tool, but also on some dilemmas. Maybe trainings on legislation, what you can and cannot do with the model predictions. Guiding principles. So what are standards or what is acceptable for your organization? Again, some dilemmas like ethical dilemmas, but also what are our guiding principles? So for example, at a Dutch bank that I did a lot of work for in the past, they have this code of conduct. So the way how they approach or use customer data. Then implementation. So you want to be responsible by design. So actually I already mentioned a lot of these aspects in the previous checklists, so to say. So is your implementation design in line with responsibility? Both from a technical as well as from organizational perspective. Then responsible management. because, well, this is, so to say, your tech team. But again, also as a management or as a user, you want to make sure that you use the solutions responsibly. And then benchmarking improvements. So over time, you also want to see what's working well, what's not working well, and improve going forward. Maybe do a baseline assessment and then periodic maturity assessment going forward. So, I mean, AI is just a tool. AI is just like any tool. It's just how you use it, that's up to you. And even though AI is a fancy tool, it's still your decision or your responsibility to use it in the right manner. So last 10 minutes on setup for success. So what do you need to consider as an organization to actually then be able to be successful here? So there's a lot of work that I just mentioned, and it's both tech as well as business adoption that comes into play. So what as a leader should we consider? Well, we like to look at building AI solutions. We like to compare it to a successful restaurant, a Michelin star restaurant, or the really good fancy ones. They look a bit different than this one, but still, I think the analogy holds. A good restaurant has a good kitchen that makes awesome, tasty food, maybe a bit experimental, but tastes really well, and a good service area. I mean, if you have a great service area, but a kitchen that doesn't make any tasty food, you will have no customers. If you have the best cooks ever, but you have a service area so people really can't sell the food or pair the wines with the food, or they make a big mess, you probably will not sell as much or do as great as you should be able to do given your kitchen. And in data science, we like to think of the data science team being the kitchen. They make the AI solutions, and the business being the service area, they make the AI solutions happen. So the kitchen contains your analytical capability, the people and skills in there that you need, the tools and tech that you need, and the data that you need. Those three aspects make up your analytical capability to be able to generate or realize AI solutions, to build them. Business adoption is a service area. Think of executive support, funding, and implementation. So the kitchen, they develop trustworthy AI systems. They account for bias in the data, fair predictions. They build guardrail metrics. They make sure that the models are explainable. They implement monitoring, all that stuff. But the business, they use AI systems responsibly, where they decide where to not use AI or where to use AI, how to implement it. They involve different stakeholders, set up governance structures, define your company-specific ethical guidelines. So all those type of activities, I would say as a business leader, you need to make sure that those are on your radar. And empower, I would say, the kitchen staff to do their work. And when we think of AI maturity for an organization, we consider 4 phases, depending how far you are in your analytical capability and or your business adoption. And you need to grow both to mature eventually. So initialization, you have some first use cases, some first opportunity. You boot up some data, some people and tools, probably a lot of external consultant focused still. Then typically you grow your analytical capability. So you pay a lot of attention to your kitchen area. You bit less to the business adoption. So you expand the team infra and you build a number of AI products. And then probably you'll see that the adoption doesn't go, well, flawless. So that's when you really invest on your business adoption typically, and you go towards enterprise empowerment, where you really grow the AI practice across different domains, different teams, and make the business more in the driver's seat to eventually mature both your tech capability and your business adoption to go towards what we call AI democratization, where, well, anyone for whom it's relevant has the skills required to take AI-driven or AI-enabled decision. Again, why, what I said earlier, this role-based access security or role-based access control is so important, why security should be in place. So why you want to make sure that there's no misuse of your systems. And when we consider those axes, and that's what we're going to wrap up with, people and skills, like I said, mostly rely on external consultants, no vision or strategy to grow talent, ad hoc knowledge sharing. That's what we consider really immature organizations. And really mature ones, well, there we have the senior talent in-house, clear career path, good curriculum for training, and knowledge sharing is constant because, well, this space is evolving rapidly. Tools and tech. Immature ones, well, just they need to ask IT for anything, just like I apparently had to ask IT for a proper Zoom meeting. But ask IT for sandbox environment, some self-maintained stuff, no maintenance, probably a lot of legacy systems at play. Whereas really mature organizations, they can set up their own infra that they need. So their own sandbox and production environments, maybe even. They can easily scale on a safe and secure cloud environment, and they build in a modular way so they can also easily update solutions instead of having to shut down entire systems. And from a data point of view, immature organizations, one-off data dumps, often data is replicated across different use cases, no ownership, no governance. Well, the organization is unaware that data is valuable. It's like a second-class citizen. Whereas the really mature ones, integrated and accessible data in a centralized platform, chief data officer in place, data governance in place, quality controls in place. And well, AI practices demonstrate the use of data and the value or many people in the organization consider it valuable because of those demonstrated use cases. From a business adoption point of view, the immature ones, just some bottom-up initiatives, AI use cases are pushed from the AI capability or the tech team. Little or no communication about any development going on within the company. Whereas really mature ones, there we have leadership asking for solutions in line with their strategic priorities, really business pull instead of a tech push, and a really active AI community maybe even, that fuels and activates the organization to adopt that AI-driven mindset. Funding. Well, immature organizations, IT funds the party, no experimentation budget, no value measurement. Mature ones, well, guess what? Business funds the AI solutions with central budget for experimentation, innovation, maybe playing around with large language models to see how this could be applicable to your organization, and value benefit tracking. Implementation, siloed implementation for the immature ones, really hard to roll out, I would say impossible to roll out, and any AI work comes on top of regular work, where mature organizations, well, guess what? Resources are freed up to implement AI, to roll it out across the organization. The business is in charge of the rollout, and you have a clear design process in place to make that all happen and to guarantee value impact. For example, the AI solution framework that we saw earlier. So, if anything you want to remember from today, I would say these are your two key messages. Solution framework can help you to develop trustworthy AI solutions with deliberate go, no-go decisions or moments in where you as a leader can ask for responsible and ethical considerations. And that checklist is not all the questions you want to ask. Like I said, I just focus on the responsibility and ethical part and try to make it hands-on for you. There's a lot more. If you want to know about a lot more, well, then drop me an email and I can give you a lot more. Secondly, setup for success. The last 10 minutes, we spent a bit on a really high level on what do you as organization need to be successful in developing AI solutions or using AI throughout your company, I would say. And well, main message here, just like a successful restaurant, you need to invest both in your kitchen and your service area to make it a success and be able to serve those really tasty dishes with the respective or the best wine pairing or drink pairing in general. So thanks for your attention. Again, my sincere apologies for the logistics around the Zoom meeting. I guess I'm to blame, so I'll take the blame and try to merge the recordings for the people who like to watch the recording or could not make it today. So if you watch the recording, you were not part of the webinar, I had some tech hiccups, but well, many people managed to rejoin, so really appreciate it. Thanks for the thumbs up. Also appreciate that. And yeah, I would say don't forget to check out the other webinars during this week. So yeah, it will be some really nice different topics, even some hands-on coding if you're into that. So I can highly recommend, for example, the session of Kayo, but also Lisanne, well, all of them, I would say. So thanks a lot. Drop me an email if you have any questions. And I just saw that yeah, the recordings of both sessions will be shared. So thanks, Xebia, for answering that question already. Appreciate it. Take care.